2000 elo. That's the marker for Brawlhalla's Diamond rank, the highest traditional rating you can get without going past 100 games. And I've always wondered, how fast can you actually get there from zero, a fresh account? Will it take a week? A day? A few hours? In order to answer that question, I created a new account for myself, installed the game, played through the tutorial, and attempted my very first speedrun for Diamond in Brawlhalla. And things immediately did not go as planned. Placement games came first, and in terms of gameplay, things went smoothly. In terms of everything else though, not so much. I forgot to turn off gadgets and turn on tournament maps. That's my bad. I kept thinking I'll change it at the end of the game, but with elo ratings and battle pass rewards and skirmish menus popping up after each and every game, I wanted to waste as little time as possible and just get into the next one ASAP. You can already tell that the timing of my run when I chose to do it with all of these simultaneous events going at the same time ended up being a huge issue, but I'll get into that later. For now, I have to address the elephant in the room. I forgot to turn on the timer for game number 1. That game was 1 minute and 25 seconds long. Just to be fair, I'm gonna add like 7 seconds before I queue again. I feel like that makes up for it. That's my bad. Oopsie. As this was my first time attempting this kind of challenge, I decided to take notes every single match based on the habits that hold people back at each rank in my journey. That way you can learn a little bit about what it takes to rank up or some things that might be holding you back against certain types of opponents. I did this between the stocks and I did this while in queue. I went a little bit crazy and I'll be pointing them out as we go through the matches here, as well as some key moments that I unlocked throughout the journey, like the first gravity cancel, the first disconnect, invite to lobby, and maybe even loss on route to 2000 elo. My first big issue in the run is actually already present. You've seen it in every single game so far. You see, I'm in US West, which is one of the smallest regions in the entire world. In order to avoid super long queues, I also added in US East as a backup server to queue, and this decision will come to haunt me much later in the run. For now though, I'm starting to notice some weaknesses, the most glaring of which among the players I encountered in my placement matches was simply attacking from too far away. They would try to approach or try to engage from areas that their moves wouldn't be able to reach. That's something that comes with experience, so no harm, no foul. I'm certainly queuing into some newer players here. Nothing wrong with that. Defense is another area, but I don't think it's fair to be super critical about that, as there's so much to learn when you pick up a new game. This Mirage here was actually the first player to really edgeguard and counter some of my automatic options. I'll be putting this out throughout the video, but I am playing very differently from how I normally would. I'm kind of rushing, mashing my attacks as soon as possible, knowing that the timer is ticking up with every passing second. And as I reached my 6th game against Artemis, we really started to see some common movement behaviors show their face. Fortunately for me, these common movement behaviors are something that I can kind of mash into. I'm able to land a bunch of reads in a row and guarantee myself some knockouts because their movement is fairly straightforward and to the point. If they're facing forward, they're going to walk forward. If they're jumping forward, they're going to keep jumping forward. As you gain more experience with the game, you start to mix things up more, but this isn't a bad game plan when you're first starting out. Practicing your options will give you more to choose from in your toolkit and make it harder for your opponent to guess what you're going to do, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with starting out at the game and not having as much experience. I mean, I've been playing for many years. Of course, these types of games will go in my favor. That might not be the case later on, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, I can check off another achievement as I got my first room invite. I've been laying out some hints, some breadcrumbs, but I'm gonna flat out say it right now. Everything that could go wrong went wrong with this run. And it went wrong not even with the gameplay, not even with my opponents, but from the very moment I launched Brawlhalla. That said, this game against the Jaehyun was one of the more unique, if not most unique, throughout this entire run. So while that's running in the background and you figure out what exactly I'm talking about, I'm gonna use this opportunity to do a tiny little pluggy plug, don't kill me please, for my most recent video if you haven't seen it. It's a documentary on one of Brawlhalla's most important players that I can near guarantee you haven't heard of, because one day he just disappeared. check that out if it sounds cool, and let's get back to me trying to edgeguard this Jae-yun and kind of failing miraculously with repeated misses after misses. I really, you can tell here, am just trying to finish the games as fast as possible. But as the clock is ticking down, I'm also realizing maybe I don't want to get hit. Maybe it would be very cool if I could get a perfect game in this challenge. So avoiding some end lights, some side lights by jumping into the air, I was able to achieve that in my placement games, and that gave me a little bit of confidence going into this next match. Now, this Dark Bryn does offer some things that we have not yet seen before. You can tell this player is very happy to attack and extend their combos as long as possible. That type of pattern usually aligns with some other things, like maybe rushing forward, maybe going for an obvious sidelight while you're landing, and then I can take advantage of that in a critical moment and take the stock as a result. Don't really know what that neutral air was, to be honest with you, but at least I got it not soon after. I'm going to be wasting a lot of time in this run. I call it a speed run, but I do some things that are pretty antithetical to that idea. At the very least, cleaning up the stock super quickly there makes up for my mistake earlier on. Now that they have the axe and I have the bow, I'm very familiar with their attack happy pattern, and I'm going to enter the range where they might want to be while attacking before they have a chance to do it themselves. And that also nets me my first ever disconnect. And my placement games are done with a final rating in gold. The specific number is 1658, which takes a while to get through with these menus. I promise I'm not pausing to look at it. That's just how long my Brawlhalla is taking to load. This Orion Prime that I queued into also gives us a very good example of how players around this rating may like to approach the game. There tends to be some, I don't know if I want to say obvious attacks, but attacks that have a very clear objective that I'm able to counter, as well as some edge guards and signature moves once they start getting a little desperate. That neutralite, for example, is pretty good, right? Someone is off stage, you want to neutralite and block them from coming back up. But in that specific position, I was so far down below that it wasn't really likely to hit, even if they had the read. That ground pound is the same deal. They saw me jump off stage and immediately wanted to counter with a ground pound themselves. The idea itself is not bad in the slightest. The execution, however, was just a little bit slow, or maybe a little bit of a misread about what exactly I was going for. Right there, for example, I felt extremely comfortable charging a signature because I knew they were going to try to approach me from the air. Without that confidence that I gained from earlier in the match, I would not have gone for this and the game would not be over as quickly. Luckily, I was able to take advantage of some of these habits I noticed throughout and start the climb towards 2000 from my 1600 starting point. I felt pretty good about my pace so far, especially since I encountered my first plat opponent right after, with a fitting clan name. This player does give us a lot of insight. As the first representative of Platinum, we can take some notes of some behaviors. Like that, for example, you saw at the beginning of the stock, and right there, once again, very happy to use gravity cancel wake up attacks. Now, the thing that they do after this is what I really take note of as I'm playing the match. After dodging, they like to attack immediately. After attacking, they also like to attack immediately. We can see another GC wake up right there, and I was more ready for it than before. There's the dodge into instant attack twice in a row, and I don't get hit by either, which allows me to be put in a situation where I can potentially take the stock. These really small behaviors on defense allow me to really push my advantage and gain damage where I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And then after all of this, they kinda just started swinging, and I was able to clean up the match relatively fast, albeit I was struggling to make it back to the ledge, and we can really see the swinging behavior right there. I just timed my spot dodge to be able to counter it, read that wake up instantly on the ledge, and from this match, I secured Platinum, and I felt pretty good. Again, this was my first time attempting a challenge like this. I really didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know if I could break the world record, so I was feeling pretty good. That feeling would not last forever, but it certainly would into this match against the Sky Captain Scarlet. The first stock I had right here was perfect, as in I didn't take any damage. I wouldn't say it's perfect in terms of my gameplay. I think that is a repeating issue that we are running into here, where I get really antsy and I just try to take stocks very fast instead of just waiting a hair, especially off stage, and just countering an option. I'm trying to hit a ghost and hoping that that ghost lines up with the player I'm against. This is not exclusive to this challenge, but it's certainly something that I do. This Scarlet, very similar to the Zol, really enjoys these GC wake-ups, And the hurried rush ground pounds that I pointed out earlier with that Orion player still tend to persist at this level. So if you are around this stage, try pressuring your opponent with movement first and then go for the attack. I think that'll probably help a lot. I mean, it'll certainly help me. We see how I'm playing. The following game, as we approach 30 minutes into the run, is really fantastic. I think it demonstrates things really, really well. This Isaiah player is fantastic. These are all great players, make no mistake, and I really don't want to take anything away from them. We can see the aggression here is great. They have their strings prepared, the dodge punishes prepared, and I was caught completely off guard. However, I think their main weakness is that they weren't entirely sure how to handle the offense and approaches, maybe not so familiar with different mix-up options. They knew what people typically went for, but when presented with something new, they weren't entirely sure what to do and crumbled a little bit under the pressure. That's perfectly understandable. I do the same myself every single day, but I think showing exactly what happened here is really fascinating. We can see that kind of approach where I went into their range twice in a row without attacking and then read their movement gave me a very, very quick stock. Maybe they anticipated me to jump up into the air. Maybe they didn't think I was going to walk into their zone and then attack and just expected me to attack from very far away. I think if you start to incorporate things like that into your play, approaching with your movement rather than approaching with your attacks, that's something I say all the time. This is a very clear example of that. You'll be able to add in those tools to your kit that I mentioned earlier. All things considered, this run was actually going fairly well. The grid runner Thea here was giving me some trouble. Let's be real here, she was kind of destroying me on this first stock. But I felt like I still had the game in my hands. I felt like all it would take is one key moment where I could read some options, where I could counter what they're trying to do and take advantage of the situation. Luckily, that GC Ensig was that exact moment, and I'm able to clean up this edgeguard with a few consecutive hits into the weapon toss finisher. From there, they started to get a little impatient, maybe something I was able to notice because of how impatient I was myself. We can see them going for a lot of instant attacks, trying to attack where I am rather than where I am going to be. I think this is a very common habit, and it's another one that I'm pointing out here in particular because I tend to fall for it myself. We saw some adaptation there from the Thea. After getting hit by Sarah, they were not going to instantly get hit by my downer. They actually jumped and attacked. And unfortunately, a side air on the lance that they could have hit to turn into an edge guard got stopped by the wall, and it completely dropped. I was able to get the stock from it. A few moments in this match really made the match, but I think it's also a matter of being able to take those opportunities and make the most from it. That's one of the things that I am trying to improve the most personally, because I feel like my aggression and when I actually land one read, that's really all I get. I get the one read and I'm not able to push it any further. This really showed me that I have the same problem as a lot of people. It's not just me, I'm not just alone. And as I fight against this first Nyx here, we can see they are the first player to really wait off stage for just a hair, see what I'm gonna do, try to read what I'm gonna do, and of course when they're on the blasters, it's Nyx. They're gonna go for that GC Ensig. We all know they're gonna go for that GC Ensig, and they started getting really jump happy after I took that first stock. Given that I'm on the bow, and I haven't even mentored that I'm playing Vector, yet mentored, by the way. I don't know, I just felt like playing him. It wasn't any rhyme or reason, but I locked him in, and luckily the bow has some pretty good anti-air options that allowed me to sneak in those neutral airs. I want to point out, as a bit of a bookmark and ELO marker so we know where I'm at, I am currently in the 1700s. And I'm saying that now in particular because why did I queue into a Brawlhalla? And this moment really epitomizes the second fatal flaw of my run. You see, if you've had an astute eye, you may have noticed in between games, above my rank, there's one sentence of text. That one sentence says, "New season has begun." Me, like a moron, decided that the best day to attempt a challenge where I need to get as much ELO as possible is a day when nobody has ELO because the season reset. This was really stupid. We can all admit this was really, really dumb. And of course, as you saw in that first stock, this Jiro is on another caliber of players I have encountered before. Unfortunately, they are not really that much in a different elo range. Not only that, the skirmish also pretty much started that day, so I got 4 different menus with the battle pass also in between matches, which takes a ton of time, and I know I'm not really talking about the gameplay in this match, but trust me, this is not the last we've seen of this player. That first stock was pretty brutal, especially on the scythe. I was getting hit with strings left and right, but I was able to compose myself a little bit more. Unfortunately, I got Mos Eisley Spaceport, which is a ginormous map, and once again, rushing to get the knockout cost me a stock. It could have cost me a hit if I wasn't in the red, but it seems like I'm playing the same whether I'm in the red, whether I'm in the white, it doesn't really matter. I'm just leaping off stage, trying to hit scythe, even though one of those down airs and one of those neutral airs could spell doom for me. It's like I don't care. This attitude of, whatever, I'm just gonna go for it, is fine when you're just playing around, if you're just trying to improve, maybe if you're just trying to rank up, but it's not so fine if that starts to get shaken. This match itself is not the match that's gonna do it. However, not long after this, I'm going to encounter that moment. And you can tell I'm just having fun now. To be honest, this is probably the most fun game I've had thus far. I messed up my dodge a little bit, but I wanted to save the Giro to keep on playing. I maybe sort of forgot I was in a speedrun, and I lost a little bit of time doing it, but that's alright. At the very least, they are at 2,000 elo, and maybe I was being a little bit hyperbolic when I said they're in the same range as everyone else, but if we're real, they still kind of are. A Brawlhalla being in 2,000? That should not be the case. Usually, it's around 2,400 at the minimum, meaning the amount of elo I could possibly gain from queuing into this opponent is dramatically less than it should be. And that doesn't go for just them, that goes for everyone, including this Black Knight Orion. And I'm sure you can tell, but this is when the game started to get a lot more passive. I'm also realizing, yeah, I definitely should have done this later in the season as I'm actively thinking about it because I'm just coming hot off the heels of that Giro game. But I gotta go one game at a time. Of course, there is much less elo to go around, but it doesn't help to think about that as I'm playing. This Orion, for example, didn't really help me with that thought process though. As we go towards the end of this game, we're going to be able to see their accolades based on their avatar. That avatar, unfortunately, is not good news for me. This edgeguard wasn't the cleanest, at the very least I was able to finish it off, but we see this is a multi-season diamond, and they were only at 1,800. You know what would be smart is if I did the complete opposite of what I did here. If I queued at the very end of the season, when there's the maximum amount of elo in the entire player-based pool available. Elo is kind of a zero-sum game. They changed it a little bit. With higher ranks, you just get less now. But the way that it used to work and the way that it generally works for everyone under 2,400 is the amount of elo gained is the same as the amount of elo lost, which means at the end of a season, when the most number of people have pressed the ranked button, there is just the most amount to go around, and that trickles down to the entire player base. We can see my playstyle here. It's not incredible. I feel like that side sig from the Val is something we can all predict a little bit, you know? They got sword off stage, they're gonna go for the side sig. I predicted it too, and still didn't punish, and ended up getting myself knocked out as a result. Why am I struggling to speak after this game? Oh my god. The last two matches have really, I don't know, they've done a number on my mental, both in-game here and in this post recording. I'm able to bounce back a little bit, but even there, I missed the Sair in the wrong direction, and we can see the cracks starting to form in this big boy Alfredo guy. He is not as clean as he was at the start. Perhaps the pressure, the timer, something is getting to him. I know exactly what it is, and I'm being a little bit facetious here. I had to poop so bad, but I'm not gonna do it. No, I got a speed run to play. And this Cassidy, I mean, I don't know if this game was fast. I don't know if this game was slow. To be honest with you, I can't remember it too well. The only thing I do remember is they had a very specific habit to dodge in under pressure. Right there, you saw, I missed my combo, they dodged in once again. They dodge in, they dodge in, they dodge in. What do I do about it? Nothing, I don't punish it. I'm thinking, okay, I can miss the punish a couple times. That's okay, that's just me being bad. But what if, for the rest of this game, I don't punish it on purpose? Another clip there of me just leaping off stage, trying to hit somebody who was already dead, didn't matter. Now they're on their last stock. This is when things really matter, and that is when I choose to punish the dodge in. And I end up actually getting the knockout from it. If I had done it earlier in that match, perhaps I would not have the opportunity to get a full stock. It might have just been one single hit. But because I saved it for the perfect time to get a knockout, or maybe not even perfect, maybe not even perfect, but just a time where I could get more out of it, that would have been great. Talking about great, this Wen King Lin Fei, it's great for me that N-Sig dropped. They had a little bit of momentum, and had that connected, maybe that stock would not go in my favor. But luckily, I was still able to keep my streak going and take the first stock in every single match so far. Unluckily, or maybe not, I wouldn't say it's luck, I would say it's a personal failure. I'm rushing. I am rushing to get things done quickly, and this is just the trend of this challenge so far. And my second stock actually gets taken first here. I am under a lot of pressure. In fact, I could die right then and there. If I panic on the wall, if I panic off stage, they could have stolen away my jumps. I could have gotten gimped, and that would have been a big setback. I held my composure for just a moment, even though I'm still jumping off stage, just trying to get the KO as fast as possible. And that movement right there completely saved this run, or at least saved this match. I feel like losing one single match does not spell doom as long as I'm able to make it up in future ones, especially with different elo ranges, but that's something we'll get into later. Maybe. Or maybe not. I was able to read that instant wake up from Lin Fei. I felt like she was gonna rush to get back on stage with the cider on the cannon, and finally, I have reached a match where things really start to go sideways. This Northwind Mordex was a game changer. Not specifically the player, but the game itself. Anyone who's experienced lag in Brawlhalla probably knows that what you're seeing on the screen is not really indicative of how it feels. The delay itself cannot really be translated. And unfortunately, this game had a bunch of invisible delay that you're not really going to be able to see. Of course, the jittering, the rollbacks, that is all visible, but this was the most miserable game I had experienced yet. It just didn't feel good to play, and my morale was not very high, thinking that I would have to encounter even more matches like this as the challenge went on. After all, I still had a good amount of elo to go. The map is also really big, which didn't really help, but I was able to take advantage of some habits and take the match. However, this is not where the story of this Northwind Mordex ends, because this match was actually on my own server. And that led me through a litany of thoughts of, oh my god, if I queue into US East, it's gonna be even worse than this. What if I start lagging then? And I came to the decision that if I lost progress by losing a game from lag, it would be worse than simply waiting in longer queues in my own region with less elo to pick from. But it was a gamble. It was a gamble I was willing to take, but ultimately still a gamble. And that decision immediately came to bite me because the very next match was a rematch against Cassidy. Rematching itself is pretty bad. It means my elo is stagnating. Ideally, I'd only be fighting opponents with significantly more than me. And perhaps my frustration at things feeling out of my control, the lag, the popularity of my server, whatever else, led me to play my worst game yet. As the clock ticked down from 5:36 to 5:35 to 5:34, a time I believe I've never seen before, I was missing my lance combos. I was getting hit by each and every one of the Cassidy's traps I had seen 1,000 times before from 1,000 different players, but it was as if it was the first time. I don't know what was going through my head, whether it was nothing or whether it was too much. All I can remember is that my chest was feeling so unbelievably tight. I just wanted this game to be over. I just wanted this challenge to be over. I just wanted this ground pound that hit on my screen to actually hit in game. This challenge was something I set out for myself. That N-Sig, by the way, I mean, I probably should have died here. I don't know how that didn't hit. But for some reason, I was just feeling overwhelming stress. I mean, maybe this is real life anxiety that is just coming out in-game for some reason. I need to address that. This is a challenge I set out. It doesn't matter if I don't complete it. It doesn't matter if I fail. But I just felt like I couldn't, and I had to keep pushing through for myself. I don't know why it was so stressful, but it was, and I just wanted a moment to breathe in the queue, even though the queue made me stressed out itself because the time kept ticking up. And in my moment of exasperation, the worst possible thing happened, because my very next opponent was another Valhalla. Internally, I was feeling a mix of emotions. That litany of thoughts has turned into a cacophony of thoughts. I was all jumbled up. Because on the one hand, I knew I was doing this for a challenge. I knew I was gonna check back at my notes. I knew I was still gonna take notes each and every match. But so much was happening in my chest, in my head. I still had to poop. Things were not going my way in the queue. And here, yet again, is another player that I should be reaping so many rewards from that is probably just going to be about the average gain that I had been getting previously. Maybe a little bit more, but not enough to justify the queues that I am encountering. Even so, I was kind of on it. My Sares this game were pretty accurate. The edge guards were going pretty well. My reads on the movement and on the decision making were kind of airtight in a way that I really did not expect. That read right there, falling down with the nair, is one of the cleanest plays I had in this entire challenge. And it was just one single hit, but that one hit gave me so much confidence back. I don't know when exactly it was lost. Maybe it should have been earlier than this, because what was that downlight? That was really dumb. But I felt a little bit better. And maybe that's odd. Maybe this is just external proof trying to say, hey, you might not be feeling well internally. Maybe I got some food poisoning. Maybe something is going wrong. But at least I'm in control of my decisions. Ideally, I'd be in control of a little bit more, like not gaining 17 points. But I figured, look, there are a good amount of elo ahead of me. I might as well initiate my first rematch. And fortunately, I felt pretty good about my reads in this game. Yes, I had a couple of dodge reads against me myself, but I kind of had a good idea of where they wanted to be, how they wanted to aggress, and I was able to sneak in an early KO off the top there. That's pretty huge, because again, this is a speedrun. I know a lot of this gameplay throughout hasn't necessarily felt like it. There's been quite a number of blunders, but ultimately, I'm not playing against people, I'm playing against the clock, and kind of in that way playing against myself. This ended up being a very clean game, but from that first match into now, I passed them in elo and I got the standard 16 amount, which is not ideal, meaning if I do run into this Brawlhalla player again, it is not worth the rematch. And then I ran into them again, so it's okay. Less elo, they played a lot more careful in this game as well, a lot more cautious, but I still felt confident. I had regained some of my composure that I had lost earlier, and I knew what I wanted to do. You can tell the way that they're jumping around. They're a lot more careful about what exactly they're gonna throw out, excuse me, but the movement inward is still the primary reads that I'm going for. I know when they want to attack, it's just a matter of if they're going to go for it or if they're going to jump at that certain position. I should rephrase that a little bit. I know at what position they're going to want to attack, and so the question is if they're going to go for it at that specific time. I know that was a little bit confusing, but the general idea, and just looking at myself play sometimes makes me feel so bad. That could have been a gimp, but I missed the second dare, or maybe my movement after was a little weird. It went by pretty fast there, but that was just a little bit of a flub, and the game could have been over within a minute or two, but instead here we are extending into this last stock. Regardless, I still feel pretty confident. I know I am getting hit here on my last stock into the yellow. That can be a nerve-wracking situation, but given that they were playing more cautious this game, I had a feeling like it was probably going to be pretty safe to throw out some of these nairs, and it ended up okay. But talking about cautious, my next opponent, this Val, was very jump, wait, and it kind of threw me for a loop. I don't know if it's because I'd been playing against very different players and my focus on that type of playstyle was a little bit off, or just because I had to poop so badly, but it got me good. This was the first match where I lost the first stock. So I had to reacclimate myself, figure out what is it that I need to do to beat this type of player as well. I've played against a bunch of different types. Let's focus up. That end sig that I did at the start of the stock was kind of bold. I knew that they were going for a lot of these double jumps in neutral. You can see right here, it's the same thing. So I was like, let me just throw it out, see what happens. Did not end up panning out in this game, but keep that in the back of your mind for later. For now, I had changed my approach a little bit. I changed the timing ever so slightly on my attacks to make sure that it's at the rhythm of this Val player. Rhythm is something that I mention in almost all of the videos where I analyze my gameplay, and I think it's a really key concept in understanding exactly what it is you're doing and what your opponent wants to do. I think people tend to fall into these very specific attack patterns where they're always attacking at the same time interval, and if things don't really work out, they don't necessarily know why it's not working out, and I'm the exact same way. You can see right here, I knew the Val wanted to get this edge guard done as fast as possible, so the moment that I landed my hit, it was safe to go for another one. From that panic situation, they weren't entirely sure what to do, so they just rushed towards the weapon, and me reading that with a signature was able to take the stock. All of that in my mind really comes down to rhythm. They have a certain rhythm that they've gotten used to, and it's won them a lot of games. But the moment that I mixed it up a little bit and shifted that rhythm to be more at my pace, they were forced to adapt, and that's very difficult to do when you're already on your last stock. This match contained a lot. It was, again, the first match where I lost the first stock, which is a little bit scary. But it also told me that I needed to pay more attention, play against the player rather than trying to play the challenge. And after completing this game, I decided to take a much-earned poop break. Might not seem like a big deal, but it was. Coming out of the bathroom, I was surprised, to be honest with you, to see the Brawlhalla Giro once again. I guess we'd been climbing at about the same rate. And while my stock didn't start out amazing, I hit a clutch GC downlight right there to recover back to the map, and my confidence was back. I was avoiding NSIGs, I was moving fine, I wasn't really getting hit by any stray moves. Even if I didn't land the read, it was alright, and weapon toss to finally take that first stock after about 45 seconds, which maybe I shouldn't use the word finally, but I was feeling good. I was feeling very, very confident. In fact, more confident than any other match thus far. I was kind of just mashing and it was working. I did, unfortunately, get clipped by that neutral air, and my habit to just instantly attack jump Sarah the moment I got hit showed its face right there, and this opponent took advantage of it. Took more advantage of it than any other player thus far. I was still feeling fine though. It's totally okay. Look, they're about to wall slip. All I gotta do is end light, and I kind of missed the end light here. I mean, I can say it's because I'm not very good at Lance, but I think the real answer is I'm just not very good in general. I get clipped by another neutral air, instantly jump Sarah to wake up, get punished for it again, but luckily I make it back. Instant jump dare to wake up. I mean, just look at me mash after every single attack. Here I jump. I've been in this position like 1,000 times before, and I got gimped. I got gimped, and then I start getting hit by everything. I can't even punish Giro Ensig. I am flubbing. I am panicking. This is what I was talking about. I have seen these situations 1,000 times before. It's just like Cassidy, and I've escaped them 1,000 times before. But I mash jump because I wanted to go fast, 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 and I got gimped. And that just happens sometimes. I mean, I never should have pooped. All my power was in that poop. Look at the elo I could have gotten. That was the worst part of my day. Everything was going so well, and then I pooped. I got so lazy on the edge guards, that second stock, a massive throw, whatever. They played fantastic. It was an incredible comeback, and you can't really be too mad about that. I wasn't able to adapt in time after my brilliant choke artistry, and I paid the price for it. Luckily, I didn't really lose that much elo, so the speedrun is still kind of fine. And that was the wake-up call I needed. I was getting lazy. Really, really lazy. The very thing that I thought to myself after the Val match, maybe I should focus on playing the player, I should lock in, was released the moment I released my sphincter. So, was Huntsman Volkov on the receiving end of me charging signatures in place and hoping they hit? Yes. But were they also on the receiving end of all of these thoughts swirling in my head at the same time while I was playing? Yes. And in a way, I think that might have made me play better. Because after the worst moment of the entire speedrun thus far, I immediately bounced back with a 3-stock. But I wasn't done yet. The queue times began to slow to a snail's pace. I was hotly anticipating who my next opponent would be. And lo and behold, it was the very same Giro With one match buffer in between, we found ourselves pitted against each other once more. I went for an aggressive dare off stage, ended up being a huge mistake. What am I doing? This is Scythe. And guess who loses their first stock first? It's me. But you know what? I was feeling okay. I mean, yes, I could throw this game. I am fully capable of throwing this game. In fact, I'm fully capable of throwing it when I have a massive lead, and right now, I'm actually quite a bit behind. This Jiro is reading me left and right. There's good news and there's bad news. The good news is Jiro does not KO the earliest if he's not landing the signatures. The bad news is I have been falling into every single signature. Luckily, I avoided that sword down sig. That was extremely close. If it hit me, the game was probably over, but I was looking out. I was looking out for that end sig because that is how the last game ended, and I told myself I'm not going to get hit by the same thing twice. If it's a different situation, that's okay. If I'm not reacting, if I'm a little bit slow, that's okay. As long as it's not the exact same situation that lost me the last game, then at least I've learned. Now, maybe I don't learn fast enough because I did immediately after get hit by another Jiro signature, but keep that in mind. Maybe it's because I was taking notes throughout the match that I had a special idea in my mind that they would go for that. Because in this next stock, we're going to see a very similar situation. I got a bit of a damage lead. That dodge in was quite risky, but it probably wasn't going to KO. They retreated to the wall, back and forth, then committed to a GC. And that GC is exactly what I was waiting for. I knew it was coming. I knew the timing. And all I had to do was not panic. Despite reacting incredibly slowly, through my predictions, I was able to take this one cleanly and gain 19 elo for my efforts. 2000 was in my sights. It was just ahead of me. But unfortunately, the run itself was also just behind me as I rematched the Val, the very same Val from the past, on the very same map. Luckily for me, I kinda knew what they were up to by this point, but I still wasn't able to play very cleanly. This was the most important part of the run, and I was also starting to sell the most. The benefit that I had was hindsight. I knew that in my previous match against this Val, I sort of let the game slip away from me by doing some really dumb moves. And then I proceeded to do some really dumb moves off stage. Don't think I really learned, but I could tell they were getting antsy, especially as I was simply not dying. I knew death was coming for me very imminently, but as I tacked on more and more damage with this first stock, I felt good. I was almost assuredly in the driver's seat for this game, and the Val started to commit to options that I don't think they were doing previously. In fact, they were attacking more frequently in this second stock of the second match than most of the first game. And right when they were starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, I pulled out the secret weapon. Remember that N-Sig I talked about before? That is one of my favorite moves in Brawlhalla. It covers double jump heights extremely well, moves very fast. People really don't expect it, partially because nobody really plays Vector, and I was able to completely steal a stock away. Unfortunately, I kind of got my stock stolen away there too. I don't know if I can even say that. I totally sold. Like, what was I doing there? I think I anticipated them to move a little bit more forward. That's why I went for the ground pound, but at least it didn't matter. Yes, I lost some time there, but at least I got the game. At this point, that's all we can ask for. It's kind of a cruel joke that I unlocked the speed stance, because this next game is the complete polar opposite of it. This Bryn player, it's like a player who was made in a lab to ruin my run. Had I not been doing a challenge, this would have been no problem. But in my head, in my hands, I just wanted it to be over. I wanted it to be over so fast and so much that I got hit so many times. It's embarrassing, actually. I got hit so many times by spear recovery. So maybe my mental was not in the best state, but I could not catch them. I actually couldn't do anything. I mean, look at me just try to mash. Finally, I could get the first stock because they're doing spear recovery. That move is very beatable, but I don't know what I was doing. You could play the Benny Hill theme right here. I just couldn't catch them, and the clock just kept ticking down and down and down and down. I just kept mashing, and then my movement got red, and I died. I'm like, what am I doing? This match, that first stock, was longer than some entire games. In fact, you could fit 2 games into the amount of time that it took for both of us to lose our first stock. Finally, 4 minutes 33 left on the clock. I was able to win this one with 1975 elo. I don't know why they gave this game to me in my like second to last one. It just felt like a cruel joke. It couldn't get worse. And then it got worse. I don't know who I angered, I don't know what I did wrong, but once again, the same Val on the same map, and I was starting to lose it on this first stock. I was just getting hit like crazy. When I tell you that everything that could go wrong went wrong in this speedrun, I mean it. I mean, even in this singular game, yes, I was able to turn things around, get the first stock, but even when things were going in my favor, they were not entirely going in my favor. We're gonna see as we go towards the end of the second stock here. Who knew that Vector Lance downtick did not give you chase dodge? I could have gotten the stock from it. I could have gotten the stock from it right away. Okay, luckily, I'm over exaggerating a little bit. I still was able to get the stock, but I was like, I was so confused. I thought for sure I just hit this move, I get the chase dodge, I follow them off stage, I win the game. There, what am I doing? I go for GC downlight to save them? What am I trying to do right here? What am I trying to do? It's like all of the... That weapon toss didn't even hit. This was so much wasted time in this run. So much. That final KO there was a comedy of errors. I don't know how that weapon toss didn't connect. It's a mystery to you. It's a mystery to me. To everyone involved. But I did it. With one elo to spare. Oh my god, it's over. I'm free. I was able to get Diamond from a completely fresh account in 1 hour and 43 minutes. The worst part about it is that was 34 games in 1 hour 43. That means it's an average of like 3 minutes per game. But my longest total game was 3 minutes 33 seconds. That means like a third to half of this run was just sitting in queue. So now there's only a couple things left to ask. Did I break the world record? Absolutely not. It took me like twice the amount of time. So I think we learned a few things. Don't do this at the beginning of a season when nobody has enough elo to actually do it fast. Don't do it during a skirmish and a battle pass because that takes a chunk of time after every match when it adds up. Don't be in a small region so that your queue times don't take forever. Have better internet so I can go across region. Don't lose, just be better at the game and focus throughout the whole thing. Don't sell gigantic leads. And maybe the most important thing of all, never, under any circumstances, poop.